G'day. So I think that's going live now. I'm trying to get the questions and answers done. I was meant to do it over the weekend, but we were busy, and Sunday we were working on the wind vane report, and today it's been meetings and lives and all sorts of stuff going on. And Jane is quickly trying to get the wind vane report up online, so that should happen in the next hour. And I was way behind on this, and the sun's coming around in the office, so we've got to get this done before the sun comes up, and then it all comes around and mucks up everything. So I'll make this as quick as I can and interesting. I haven't even really seen the questions yet. I had a look as they were coming in, but I didn't really sink in, so I'm going to go cold on this. So Christoph's asking, it's a question about me, what would I take the most important books or cassette tapes and so on. Cassette tapes, boy, how long is the list that you've got? The problem is the music you might want, you can't get the tapes, and so you've got to really put up with the tapes that you get and listen to the music, and a lot of it's back in the 80s and things like that, which is all pretty cool. So I haven't got any favourites there, but personally I like a lot of jazz and a lot of the music that I was brought up with when I was in my teens and stuff, but it's hard to find, so that's challenging. Books, I would necessarily take some reference books on certain subjects, but I'd take real trashy novels. It's really funny. I never read trashy novels, but I know when you're on the water, you're actually looking to do something different. When I took my Mini across the Atlantic last year, which was only for 28 days, it was really funny. I had a romantic novel and this stuff that I pinched out of the Lanzarote sort of Rubicon Marina swap library just to have a read. And it was really fun because it was loose and easy and simple. You didn't have to think. You could kick back and read the book. Never read those books normally. So that's the same with food as well. You always make sure you take plenty of food that you would normally never eat, because when you get out there, you want to eat different things. Other question there was, what's the Atlantic like versus the Indian or Pacific Oceans? Well, most of my life has been spent in the Pacific Ocean. I love it. It's completely special. We're really spoilt when you live in Australia because it's just there. You can grab a boat and go out and hang out in it. And I love the diving, the fishing, the islands, the people, all that sort of stuff. I've only really done a little bit in the Atlantic when I did the BOC challenge, sailing Newport in America, sailing around the world and back again, and then across the Atlantic again in the Mini. In Trekker, and that was quite fun, but we didn't like the guys in the GGR complaining, where's the trades, well, we had a bit the same. It's supposed to be a trade wind run from Portugal, Canaries across to Antigua, but we had plenty of wind, and the five were saying, where's the trades, so maybe the weather's changing, but it was certainly fun. If I wasn't so busy, I'd be happy to do that trip again in Trekker the end of next year, but I'll be busy with the OGR, and Jane's already said I've got the wrong shirt on, but anyway, that's life. Any you fear more or less? Well, I like the Pacific, and I don't really fear any ocean as long as I'm in the right boat. You get rid of the fear to a degree when you set off through good planning and preparation. When you're out there, yes, you get scared and you have a bit of fear, especially when you run out of preparing. If you know something's coming, you prepare everything on the boat. I'm sure the GGO guys will be doing this very soon. You have a good boat, you do everything you can, and if you know it's coming, you sit there waiting, and that's the worst bit. When it happens and it's hands-on, it's not so scary because you can do things, So that's it. Clay Sweden, when are you expecting the store items? Now, the shop is a real issue for us. We've got great hats, great t-shirts, great bits and pieces. If you come past the office, call in and we can sell you some. It's really challenging for us to get that into a dispatch situation and get it out anywhere. If we wanted to sell someone a hat, it costs like about €35 or something to get it out of here and to someone. For us to walk it to the post office, to package it up, go to the post office. There's only like 5 or 6 of us here, and when we're really busy, and it just takes a lot of time. So it's a problem for us. I'll concede that. I know you'll want merchandise and stuff. So we're still working on the best way to handle that, to get it to a point where it's economic. And we'll try and get something up. But we've got some cool shirts and hats and bits and pieces, beanies and all sorts. And we've got the coin, I've got the coin. I haven't got one here. We've got the Joshua coin for this edition of the race. And we've got some limited edition canvas posters, which are real classics, which we will get up. You can also buy models of Joshua, and also from James just sent me the coin. Oops. This is live. Fill out the case. That's our Joshua gold coin. It's a commemorative coin, and there's only 300 and something of these that have been done. The same for the number of days that Joshua was at sea by the time he got back to Tahiti. And they're going to go with the limited edition posters, so they're pretty cool, and a few other things as well, so stand by for that. We will get organised hopefully before a month or so before Christmas, which is only the end of November, so you can buy stuff for Christmas. So it's still a happening thing. Sorry we haven't answered all the emails for people asking us about when's the shop happening. I need to buy stuff. We will get to it, and it's a bit embarrassing for us, but we're only a small team, and we're not selling tens of thousands of them, so it's hard to manage. Okay, Douglas, just wondering, on the required electronics like WeatherFax or SSB or radio direction finder, do they need to be vintage? Well, certainly they don't need to be vintage. They can be a current build and modern, but they've got to be single sideband radio with no GPS and so on. It seems the race are all saying they do not get the WeatherFax info. Is that because they are using eBay 1960s models? No. eBay, well, they're not 60s models. They're actually in the late 80s and early 90s. They were quite popular. I had one in the BOC Challenge in 1990 when I did it, and basically they don't fail, and there's a lot of boats that have hardly ever been used. The challenge now is to get the stations that are transmitting. We've now found out that Brazil is not transmitting WeatherFaxes. I think we've just found out that Cape Town might not be either. Australia is, New Zealand and certain parts of North America and certain parts of Northern Europe, they're all still issuing WeatherFax. We thought they were all doing it. I thought it was part of the GMDSS system. It's not. HF High Seas Weather Forecast from WMO, World Meteorological Organization, is actually maintained for safety reasons, but WeatherFaxes are getting a bit iffy. And you can buy new ones still that are old stock, new ones. They cost about quite a few €1,000, and you can get second-hand ones for $300-400 US, euro, whatever, and they're still quite cool to have. So that's fine. Jill Ward, would be interested to know if you think the changing global weather patterns will influence the race going forward. I think they already have. I think they are. I've had a bit of a history with the weather. I spent 20 odd seasons in Antarctica and doing all sorts of different things, and for 10, 12 years or so it was expedition leader organising tourist trips down there. We had various scientific lecturers and learnt a lot from them about what's going on with weather. And the Southern Ocean is getting windier every year effectively, and it's changed a lot in the last 20 years. I just saw a report, someone sent it to me, about some interesting things going on with the upper atmosphere winds over Antarctica that are pulsating, and right now for this season that whole system is creating, it's pulling the traditional westerlies further south apparently, and that may affect our guys because we have a safety zone, like a southern limit that they can go down. And if that Antarctic report, and I only just received it a couple of hours ago and haven't read it fully because I'm too busy, if that's true, that means that maybe some of the storms are going to hold down south as well. Touch wood, that'd be nice. So yeah, the traditional weather is changing for sure. Not fast, but it is changing over time. And yeah, that's about all I can say. It's interesting. Okay, Larry Woolner, do the skippers know their position in the race? Great coverage, thanks. So no, they don't, unless someone tells them, and that can be another entrant. They talk between themselves. If you listen to who was it today? It was I forget. Ian Herbert Jones gave us a list of the people he's talking to, the other entrants on his radio. They're all giving each other positions, but we don't give them the positions, and under the rules they're not allowed to get the latitude and longitude positions from any other source coming in, otherwise they could cheat and not do their celestial navigation. But some of them have got positions. Simon hardly knows where anyone is because his radio's not working so well, so it's quite the same as it was back in '68. They're short on knowledge where they all are. Robin Dombert Imber, when can I see the movie that premiered on the Race Village and the recent adventure movie happening now? Okay, GGR 2018 is a real challenge. We just had to today cancel some of our planned film festival appearances because we're trying to find a distributor, and distributors don't necessarily like us showing the movie anywhere to other people. They want to make an agreement, and then once they've got that, then they'll be the ones that will send it out through the film festivals to get credibility and so on. We've had a huge reaction to the launch, and we just anyway, it caused a bit of an issue. So now we're not even sure what's happening with the film festival releases. It's important we sell it to a distributor because we invested a lot of money in the film. We're independent film producers like Jane and I, and Jesse, who's been directing the whole thing, and we need to try and get a return on that. So we're trying to get it out as soon as we can, but as I say, we've now got some challenges with film festivals as well. So it might be mid-late next year before you get to see it, sadly, but it's worth seeing when it comes up, believe me. So everyone tells us. Colin McCullum, hi Don, is it possible to show the distance to the leader of the leaderboard? To show distance to leader on the leaderboard, it would save readers having to do the sums. No, we can't do it. The software doesn't allow that. So all you got to do is use the toggle point. You've seen me do it, just boom, boom. And once you put them on the screen, you can hold it anywhere and just move it around to each entrance. So it doesn't take too long. And it's very hard to measure exactly what you want to know. You know, what's the distance to the leader? If the leader's there and the other boat's there and you're both going this way, the distance apart is not so relevant to the distance to the finish. So everyone wants different types of information. But thanks for the question. John Edwards, what's the most challenging thing you and your GGR 2020 team are dealing with this week? The shop. Hats, t-shirts. He's got so many people want stuff, and we're really challenged with that. The wind vane report is really important. You'll see when you read it. We try to define why we do it. We consider wind vanes and self-steering gear to be a safety equipment on the boat. It's not just a luxury, it's safety. So we are very interested in what happened to the Hydrovane. Hydrovane are one of our partners, but that's a separate issue. You know, we act independently of that. We enjoy their support, and we value that support from Hydrovane, but nonetheless, it looked as if there was something happening and we needed to know what it was about. We've done that report now, and you'll see we've not requiring there's no issue with us with the Hydrovane at the moment. When a wind vane fails on a GGR boat in the Southern Ocean, it gets very challenging. You can only steer the boat for so long. In 2018, it caused or impacted the situation to the point where boats were damaged and possibly even lost because their wind vanes failed at the wrong time. So very important issue. So we're dealing with that very seriously, and you'll see the outcome shortly. Bernard Tester is still holding his own. He sure is. It's fascinating to watch, and we are actually just trying to get Jean-Luc VDH track up, and also Sue Haley, just to give you the comparisons there as well. We've been trying to do it for the last couple of weeks, but everyone's really busy at YB as well, and but we think it might be up this week, so that'll be another interesting comparison. Can you comment on this with respect to the start date, seasonality, etc., or is it just that this year's fleet had an especially challenging ride out of the Bay of Biscay and so on? Well, certainly Bernard started from Plymouth on August the 22nd, 1968. We started him on this race on September the 4th, the same date as GGR from Les Sables d'Olonne, and from Plymouth. So what you're seeing is his course, but it's delayed a bit to our start time. And you can see there the complete different track that he's taken and the different weather. He can't go to windward like's happening with our weather. So yeah, every season is different. Is it climate change? Maybe. And yes, they had a hard time coming out of Biscay, and also they've had an interesting time going through the trades. It wasn't as much fun, you know, in the South Atlantic trades as it could have been or should have been. And when we put Jean-Luc's speed up there, Jean-Luc arrived with the majority of the fleet underneath Cape Town, and you'll quickly see that he's way ahead of the whole fleet here. We're quite behind. So anyway, Nick Fleming, can you explain how the sailors choose which point of sail to work to? They all seem to prefer a broad reach, but is this because it's the fastest point of sail or because it's the most comfortable to maintain? The extra distance gained by a reach rather than pointing the boat. Well, does working close haul not improve their VMG? Well, you're answering your own question. Yes, it depends where they've got to go. That's the first point. If you've got to go here and it's more comfortable to go there, but you can go there, you won't. You'll go there if you're racing. So that's a very complicated answer, but the short story is that yes, sometimes comfort of the boat, by cracking off a little bit, keeping the boat comfortable, keeping it more upright, and working out the thing, you can actually go faster with the Vector made good to your ultimate destination. Other times you might want to just relax or do some cooking or have a good sleep, and the vane might take you out there. It's a very complicated argument, and every skipper would tackle it a different way. But if you've been following my daily updates, you'll see it's not a good idea coming down through the South Atlantic trades to keep losing ground and going out to the west, when you know later on when you get down south you've got to go across to the east. So you need to make an objective decision on when you're going down, whether it's better to go half a knot slower and maintain the run line, or go 2 knots faster and crack off a bit, but you're going out to the west that you've got to come back around later on. So they're all individual choices that the skippers make, and that's the difference between being competitive. But the real classic, and a lot of people haven't got this yet, when Damien came around Finisterre, he was 550 miles behind Simon. He couldn't catch Simon all the way down the Atlantic, right? By the time he got just below Trinidad, he was basically only 80 miles. He picked up 80 miles on Simon, but Simon was still there. 2 days later, he's only 200 miles behind because Damien was able to turn left a lot quicker than Simon was with the weather Simon had. But so there's lots of little things like that are really interesting, you know. Damien has done an amazing job. He's sailing really hard, really fast, and he overtook a lot of the slower boats. But don't forget, Simon kept away from him on the way down, and that's yacht racing. So they're all tactics that happen with the weather, and lots of interesting decisions that get made on board by the skippers. Hi there from Dave Redding. How much weather information do the skippers have access to? Only what they can find on their HF radio. So they'll get WMO weather forecasts, high seas, and that's area specific. There's different areas in the different oceans and which one they're in. They've got to get that and then draw their own little weather map and see what's going on. They've got their barometer on board and their barograph. They should have a barograph. It tells you a bit more than a barometer. And then they look at wind direction. You know, a lot of people say, you might not get this either when I'm talking about they'll look at the wind strength, the wind direction, and their barometer, and they can work out where the centre of the high is. Now, if you're in the southern hemisphere, and I'll try and keep this simple, if you're in the southern hemisphere and the wind is coming down this way from your right, you stick your arm out and point it into the wind. Guess what? The centre of the high is going to be straight in front of you, right there. So all you got to do is keep your left arm out here and move that around so it's pointing directly into the wind. And wherever that's the case, that's where the centre of the high is, straight in front of your nose. So you know where the centre of the high is because the wind's coming from here. And your barometric pressure, if it's going up, then you know you're moving towards the centre of the high. If the barometer's going down, the high is moving away from you, right? And then, you can also, lots of different things. There's lots of little tricks. I'm not going to give you a weather lesson, but that's one of the most simple ones that I can explain. But if you're in the northern hemisphere, it reverses, right? So, but just remember, that it's an easy thing to do. So, and that'll show with the different skippers who've got more ocean time, because there's some that have, like Pat, for instance, he's a commercial fisherman, spent half his life probably on the ocean. He understands weather. He's relaxed in his boat like Jean-Luc was, and he's just into the ocean. He can sail, So, okay, your video updates enable us to see who's heading for what wind, which seems to be impossible on the YB Tracker app. Yeah, that's right. The reason for that is the app's not powerful enough to give you all of that extra data like current and temperature and cloud cover and all the fancy windy weather on there, the wind gear. But on the PC, you can get the lot. So just use your app and your tracker for when you're at work and you're supposed to be working, remember, and you want to check the tracker or when it's convenient. But if you really want to get the real deal and have some fun, you need to open up your PC or whatever, and then you get the whole thing all off our website there, and you can have a bit of fun and get all the information that I give you. That's the best way you can follow the overlay. And even then, I still go to the Windy website. Just Google Windy. Get on their websites anywhere in the world, and you've got a whole heap of information that you can get there. Everything, all the isobaric maps and the thunderstorms. You can get specialist weather maps if you're a surfer or a flyer or whatever, and you can even subscribe. I pay €18 a year, and I get extra updates every hour instead of every few hours, and more information that I can use to help analyse the weather. And it becomes very important when the fleet now gets into the Southern Ocean, because we will be looking very closely for forecast winds over 35 knots sort of thing to make sure we give the entrants safe information on weather to give them a chance to minimise the impacts. So me and my small students are wondering, is it a fact that Damien returned to the start before he stopped? Explains why he is in the race and not on the Chichester class. Okay, so yes, he did return to the start, but if you look at the notice of race in the fine detail of the rules, the start day and time was 4 o'clock on Sunday the 4th of September, and it's in the rules that the gate to start is open for another week. And that's specifically if someone goes out and has a problem, it's quite legal for them to come back. They have to notify us before they come back, so we know they're coming and we can see what they do when they come back. They can work on their boats, and as long as they start by 4 o'clock on the previous Sunday, like the next Sunday, they're still in the race. The clock has been running. They're now 7 days or 6 days behind. Damien left about 6 days behind the rest of the fleet, and he's been going to catch up since. He had a pretty reasonable run across the Biscay. Doing the second time was a bit better than the rest of the fleet, and he ended up about 550 miles behind once he turned the corner, and now he's only a couple of hundred miles behind, so he's done really well. That's in the rules. There's a lot of things in the rules that people don't understand or don't know, but you can always download the notice of race, which is all the rules. If you want to have a read, you can get up to speed on what goes on. It's really funny. So often I'm reading some of the forums and people commenting about the race and what's going on. They have no idea because they don't understand some basic principles of the rules. And I just laugh. I don't try and tell them because it just starts a whole new thing. But you can have a bit more fun sometimes when you know some of the key elements of the rules. And there is an index. You don't have to read the whole book. There's a lot of rules. You can go straight to the subjects you might think, and you can have some fun having a read. Hi Don, do you think Damien's breaking his hydrovane shaft was because the stress put on it when it broke? No, it's not. You'll see in the report what happened. I was surprised that he had a backup shaft. I was not really, because he's well prepared. He's got a good team behind him. You'll see he bought a complete spare hydrovane on board to use as spares. So, and yes, shafts don't normally break, but you'll see when you read the report. I think there'll be a few people surprised at what they find. Anyway, Jerry, are there any places along the route where they are allowed to pick up food? No, they're not allowed to get resupplied at all. If they do, they're in Chichester class. Otherwise, what do they eat along the route? I'm sure fish is always available. Most of them don't fish. It's very messy and so on, and they've never fished before often. For me, I didn't fish, but I fish all the time normally, if I can. I've been fishing all my life, but during my solo circuit, I didn't really fish. Just once coming up the Australian coast to Sydney, which is my hometown, I caught a little fish, but the rest of the time it's too hard. You're concentrating on other things. You got plenty of food anyway. You can't rely on catching a fish, so you've got all the other food. So why take the fish? So a few of them are fishing though, and they have lots of their own food, all sorts of different types of food. It's been covered a lot. Freeze dried. Some of them, most of them have got a lot of wet food, because if you've got freeze dried, you don't save weight. You still have to take the water. Things like that. So, okay, Gonzalo, can you talk about the synoptic chart for the Atlantic that the skippers are using compared to Windy? Windy's very easy to understand. It's super graphics, super easy to comprehend, to see what's going on. But the isobaric maps are contours of pressure, contour lines of equal pressure that go around, and we always have squeaky doors, eh? That was Lutz sticking his head in. But anyway, and you can get the gradient from that. If the isobars are a long way apart, you can see that the wind is only on a gentle slope at that point, and it's not super super strong. But if the isobars are close together, it's very strong. There's a lot of information on weather on Google. Just Google this stuff and you'll see, especially in YouTube. There's some fantastic instructional videos on weather and how it all works and so on. So, because I could sit here and talk for a long time about weather and how everything interacts and so on, but I can't spend too much time on that. Others will get bored. Anyway, Noel, hi Don. Which wristwatch is the most appropriate for circumnavigation? Is there any preference or brand or type? I assume it would be automatic without batteries. That's exactly right. This is a Ralphtech watch. Ralphtech used to be our timing partner. In fact, here I've got my race watch. Okay, that's my, I won't call you what we call it. But anyway, this is a Ralphtech WRX. This is a really good watch, indestructible. I could throw this at the wall, and if I ever sink, it's waterproof to 500 meters. Very impressive. Do I need 500? Don't know. Anyway, but the thing about watches, and this is a Ralphtech as well, okay, it's not so much the case, which is all very beautiful and very nice, and it's waterproof to whatever. It's the guts of it that you're looking for. Each one of the insides of these really good, expensive watches, you know, this was about over €3,000, and this one's about €1,800 or something, is a Ralphtech don't make the movement. They make the watch, but they buy the movement, and most watches do that. There's a few countries in the world that make watch movements, and they're given a code, okay, and that will tell you how accurate it is. These are all manual watches, no batteries. This is the difference. So they're wind up and they're automatic. You shake it and it winds up. And what you do is you look for the mechanism that has got the highest rating. And you can read about all this again on Google. Just Google it. It's quite fascinating. So what the entrants have done, some of them have bought second-hand watches. They work out what's the level of accuracy they want, and consistency. All watches will have an error. You know, some of these watches wind up, you might lose 3-4 seconds a day. But as long as you know the error, you set the error, you rate the watch, work out the error. Even if you don't get a time signal every day, you can work it back. Yeah, Ian was saying Ian's got a Rolex on board, and we all sort of roll our eyes and say, what the? Very expensive, very nice watches. Both Sir Robert Knox-Johnson and Bernard Matessier had Rolex watches back in 1968. You never take them off your wrist. You keep the temperature constant by being on your wrist, and you keep the movement average constant, which keeps the rate the same. So the number of seconds it's losing every day basically stays the same. There's a lot of interesting watch stories. Sir Robin's watch, he traded it in when he got back. Rolex wanted it back, so they gave him a solid gold one or whatever it was, and took that one away and put it in the Rolex Museum, which is still there. So anyway, yeah, the movements are what you're looking for, you know, and you can Google it, and I forget the numbers. They all have a number, and that's what they're doing, because we don't allow electric watches in the GGR. But they have to have radio on board to get time signals, okay? So the you can get your sound signal, to calibrate your watch all the time, and that's very critical for navigation. I think these answers are getting a bit long, but anyway, as a techno wit, I don't know how the skippers send their tweets. Okay, I haven't got my. This is an Iridium phone. This is a 9555. I've got a couple of these. I've got another one which is a Iridium Extreme. This one has been around for quite a while. This model, but it's what most of them have got. They're not waterproof. They're weatherproof. Satellite phone, just like a normal phone. But hello, how are you? And they're sending SMSs this time. So that's the SMS. Where's my YB3, GG? It's in the yellow bag. Can you get it? Oh, anyway. No, doesn't matter. I've got a YB3. They've got YB3s as well. So this one is used for just a simple SMS like a phone. And then we get that as an email or wherever. And the yellow bag's not here. Oh, okay. And that goes up, Jane logs it into Twitter straight away, and then we put it up on Facebook here. The other one is the YB3, which is it's a dual-purpose independent tracking system. It gives a position once a day, that's all, or every 12 hours, I think, just to tell us it's on. And if we want to send a message to an entrant on the boat, that unit sits there, and because they'll turn their phone off here, we can send a message to the YB3 on board. An alarm goes off, and they know there's an incoming message, and it might say, please put your phone on, we want to ring you, or whatever. It's a safety process, and the reason, as I said, it gives one position a day or every 12 hours just to tell us it's still on. The main tracker is on the back of the boat. That's the YB3i. Anyway, so they're simple SMSs, and every week, once a week, they have to send us a message on the YB3 to make sure they know how to do it. Because in 2018, we used to use that YB3 for all the tweets, but it's harder to use because it's not a generic keyboard like a phone. But it's very safe. It's very important for safety, because if they go into life raft, they take the YB3 with them. Okay, and they can do exactly the same thing in the life raft, and that's completely waterproof. It's hardened. It's like military grade. It's better than an EPIRB, as long as you've got your EPIRB going off as well. At least we can communicate with that. They also have these satellite phones in waterproof cases then if they have to abandon ship. Anyway, so that's how we get our messages and how we talk to them. Deborah, Just want to say only one sailor will be first, but in my book, just to finish, absolutely spectacular memories of it. You're exactly right. You don't have to be first to win the GGR. Do any of the GGR skippers use radio direction finders, and if so, how successful? Actually, they all have to have a radio direction finder. They all have to know how it works, and there are both aero beacons, like aircraft beacons, that are still active all over the world. There are still some marine beacons as well that are used in different parts as an ultimate backup. And you can actually, if you know where the transmitting station is for a particular radio station, normal radio station, you can still get a bearing on that as well. So they can be useful. The reason we have them on board the boats is because if their sections got damaged or whatever it is, and they needed to get to hone in on a landfall, it's quite handy, and it means they wouldn't necessarily have to move to Chichester class as well. And in 2018, a couple of the entrants actually used their radio direction finders to assist their progress in the GGR, so they were actually used, but they're really a standby, and it's a bit of a throwback to cassette tapes for music, but it's part of the fun, reliving the whole history of the GGR and so on. Nicholas, hi Don, can you talk a little bit about dealing with chafe on sheets and halliards? It's something that with careful setup can be eliminated given modern rope technology. Otherwise, what can they do? Is it a matter of having overlength ropes and end for ending them and just moving them a little bit every time? First of all, yes, you're right. There's no reason to have chafe on boats. You shouldn't have halyards breaking when you're sailing. Most people go around the world without breaking halyards, okay, but some people do. And I'll come back to this saying it's all about planning, preparation, and execution. There will be a reason why a halyard chafes. It could be in the design of the rig and how it's done, how the sheaves and exit boxes are done, or it could be unbeknown to the sailor, there's a wrap up somewhere and he doesn't realise that it's coming out on the wrong lead, or so that's like an accident happening that's causing the chafe. Modern ropes will chafe through very quickly with the slightest bit of, if you've got anything sharp there, boy, it can go in quicker than everyone imagines. So it happens. But one of the objectives when you're sailing around the world non-stop is to not chafe anything. So I've been surprised a few times when there's chafe going on and halyards going. So, but it does happen, and they got to work with that. And they'll all have spares. They usually have 2 Genoa halyards, 2 staysail halyards, 2 main halyards. So if one goes, you've at least got one other to take over immediately to get you by, and then you'll work out how you're going to get another one down. The worst thing that you have to do is if you lose it and it drops, if it breaks, the tail of it drops into the mast. Hopefully you can pull it out, where it's coming out. But then you've got nothing there. You've got no trace or anything. So you have to go up and with a thin line and a weight and feed it in and drop it down and then lower it all down. And when you're by yourself, you've got to go back down again and then try and hook up to it and pull it through your exit spot on the mast and pull it through, pull the mouse through. So it's quite a task, and that's what's facing Simon at the moment. It's quite hard when you completely lose it. So just one of those things that happen. And modern ropes are good, but they can still chafe if you've got the wrong things up against it. Don from Tristan, are you concerned about the skippers not receiving Weatherfax transmissions? No, not at all. That's an aid. The whole thing about the GGR is you've got to be prepared to go around the world without getting any weather forecasts. That's the reality. It's what happened in 1968, and there's nothing unsafe about that. If you've got a good barometer and you understand the weather and you have a good boat, it's not unsafe to sail around the world. Yes, you can be safer, right? You can have an 80-foot boat and you can sail a lot faster. And so that's safer, but it's not unsafe to go around in a little boat with your barometer and with your knowledge and with sensible seamanship, because if you can't cope with bad weather, you shouldn't be out there anyway, right? And so that's a mindset thing, and it's a cultural thing. It's the way everything's shifting. Now people will say to you, oh, if you haven't got GPS chart plotters, blah, 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 you can't leave the dock. The funny part is that most people have got, don't know what they're doing anyway. No, that's unfair. I shouldn't say that, because even if you do know what you're doing, you're still going to have all your aids. So I've got to be careful how I put this. But what I'm trying to do is stress the concept and the idea that there is nothing wrong with being a sensible sailor with sound seamanship knowledge, a really well-found boat, a barometer, a compass, a knife, a line, the charts, safety gear, EPIRB, all that sort of stuff. You can go. If you can't go because you think you've got to have all that stuff, what happens when all that stuff fails? What are you going to do? Okay, enough on that. Anyway, fascinated to know from Steve. Fascinated to know more about head sail setups. This year, many of the sails are rigged with the Yankee, staysail, and Genoa. Last edition, John Luke sailed with just 2 head sails. In fact, he sailed all the way around the world with just 2 head sails, and he never changed them the whole way. And both of them were on furling gears, so just in out, in out, in out. That's all he did, you know. And then spinnakers, he put spinnakers up and down. It's amazing. To me, there seems little point carrying a Genoa when single-handed. Interesting. Pat and Simon have broken their Genoa heads. It would be cool to get some commentary. You know, every boat can be rigged differently, and each sailor has a preference on what they want to do. One of the fascinating ones, I brought it up in the boat tours, Simon is sailing with a single spreaded rig as a preferred design concept. And there's some sound reasoning for that as well, and it may be paying off now. He's got better power ratios on the boat because the boat's going faster than, how do I put it, boat's going faster than it should maybe, and maybe that's helped by the fact that he's a good sailor, good sails, he knows how to trim his sails, he's got a strong rig, but he hasn't wasted any weight anywhere, okay, with a single set of spreaders and the way that's set up. So he's taking a different approach, and it may be paying dividends, as well as with all the other preparations he's got. Others are built like a tank, you know. Ian Herbert Jones, his boat, I love it for ocean voyaging. I mean, it's like, oh boy, very impressive. But it's a lot heavier, and he's got double, triple redundancy, and all sorts of stuff there. So, and then on the sail side again, it's so many different options. You know, you look at Kirsten with her folding twins on the outer forestay. You know, for me, I like having 2 sails very close on furling gears, reefing gears, you know, number 1, number 2, so you can just roll them out one at a time, you know, boom, boom, and put poles on them and do whatever. And others have done different plans as well. So it's a bit hard to, I can spend half an hour and go through it if I had all the different drawings of each of the boats. But the concepts change and they all work. But I think I know what you're saying. It's interesting to see that a lot of people are now running their, running a Yankee and a staysail all the time, rather than running a Genoa, no staysail, and then furling the Genoa and then bringing the staysail in and then keep going. So there is a bit of a mindset change on that, and it's just now watch the results, see what happens. It's quite fun to watch. Okay, hey Don, thank you for the excellent. Did you know that one can see the tracker's desktop? I couldn't get this. I passed it over to Lutz. You can see what's going on here with Lassie's comments on the questions if you scroll back to the post, but you can see the tracker's desktop view and tools on an Android as well. Now I'm thinking that is referring to an Android phone maybe, I'm not sure, but anyway, it's catch it and follow it how best suits you, so thanks for that. What date are they roughly expected to finish? Well, for Cape Town they're going to be in about 2, we think the earliest will be about the 7th or something, but finish the race is wide open. We started 2 months later, so that was in January, February, March. You know, you're going to see the first ones coming in March in Les Sables d'Olonne, and the prize giving presentation will be, we're thinking June the 15th, which is the date that Sue Haley departed Falmouth to start in 1968. So somewhere in March you should see the first boats come into Les Sables d'Olonne. Okay. Now, Mike Phillips. I think Elliot's the only sailor with just solar on his only means of producing power without using the engine. Is this correct? Yeah, I think that's correct. He doesn't have a wind generator. He had a wind generator to fit, but didn't get time to fit it. He had a really big one, a 400. It's a German one, 400 one. It was a massive one, but they didn't get time to fit it. It was left behind. Could you please publish a list of power generation sources of the whole fleet? No, we're too busy, and I haven't got. I'd have to go through the same thing that you go through and find out. They were meant to get a questionnaire to all fill out, so we got a lot of the statistics, but we haven't. But if you look at each of the boat videos of the that we did while they're on the marina here, you'll see a lot of statistics there on what's going on and how they get their power and so on. So the sun's beating me now. I don't know, I'm probably looking like really funny. The sun's coming through the window. Anyway, there was some discussion in the technical boat tours about the merits of 1 versus 2 spreaders. Well, I just mentioned that with Simon a minute ago. I think it was Simon Kern's boat. Any chance you could expand on that, please? Thanks a lot. Yeah, there's no... the only real advantage of 1 versus 2 is that often now, a lot of the original designs, they had single spreader deck step masts, okay? And quite a few of the entrants have changed that to a keel stepped 2 spreader rig. When you go keel stepped, if you keep the section size the same, if you had deck stepped and you have a certain section thickness, and you hold that thickness and then take it down to the keel, you're getting a stronger mast. It's supported better. Okay, a racing guy will take the mast section down to the keel and then decrease the size of the section to save weight aloft. If you go from a single spreader original sort of cruising boat design and you put a twin spreader rig on with the same section, you can get it a lot stronger, or you can go thinner section and support it better with twin spreaders and also keel step. So that's happening there. And then if you have a section and you go single spreader, but with this sort of situation where you have these inters that go into the part way up the mast above the spreaders without going to the masthead, you're getting the similar benefit without having the extra weight of the second set of spreaders. So lots of different variables and a different matrix for each thing, but it comes down to common sense again on what works, and every situation is different, and everyone's got a different idea, which is better, which is worse, who knows, very complicated. Douglas, one more for the weekend. If a potential entrant wanted to fund his or her own adventure by creating a YouTube channel of the builds, sea trials, YouTube channel carrying everything, would the rules allow that? Yes, of course they would. If you want to do 26, you can do whatever you want. I got the idea because Kirson's build was made on YouTube. Yeah, you can do anything you want to publicise yourself, but we've made a policy decision. We stopped now promoting crowdfunding, so you won't see GGR in 26 promoting crowdfunding. Okay, so it's just a policy we've now adopted. Not saying there's anything wrong with crowdfunding, but yeah, we're not going to push that heavily. I hope you still got audio there. Okay, did all the boats have from Joanne? Did all the boats have weather facts? It wasn't compulsory. Most of them have, but a couple of them haven't. So, Abolish hasn't got a weather facts, and I forget the others. Saying they don't work, they do work, but some of them are challenged. It's like an HF radio. You got to receive a long range signal, so you've got to have it installed correctly, the right aerial, the right amplifier, the right earthing, the right connections, no twisty bad connections like my audio this morning. And then you've got to hope the station's transmitting, it's transmitting well. So there's a lot of things that have to fall into place. But when it's all working, it's valuable information. Lack of shipping traffic, well, there's not a lack, it's just that where they are, there's not much ships, and that's known. So it seems like it would be a tactical secret, but sailors are known for their generosity. They can, if they're talking to a ship, they can share any weather information they want anything they want from that ship. There's no restrictions at all. If they're talking to a land station, they're only allowed to have someone read to them the official WMO weather forecast. But we cover that a lot. We're through it. That looks like the end. Okay, so that's it. Keep an eye out for the wind vane report. That's out soon. We'll do this. We try to do this as we think there's things going on. We'll bring up another question session probably every couple of weeks. So we'll see you then. And for now, thanks. See ya.